Hello friends, with you as always, Mr. Recapped. Today we are reviewing a drama film called Helena in a Box, 1993. Friends, I will be grateful if you liked and subscribed to the channel. It only takes like 1 second. I will be pleased. Now here we go. The film describes how Dr. Nick Cavanaugh is a great surgeon who deserves the recognition. He has everything a person desires. He has an athletic physique, he has a beautiful mansion inherited from his mother and a beautiful girlfriend, and who works with Nick in surgery. But all this is trifling in his eyes because he has one unattainable goal, the beautiful Helena, with whom Nick once spent an unforgettable night after a party. After work in the hospital, Nick stops by a bar to have a drink with his friend Lawrence. But when he sees Helena there, he says goodbye and leaves. And around this time, Anne returned from work with groceries for their first dinner. She happily announced her plans for their future, and while she was preparing the table, Nick decided to go for an evening jog. His legs immediately carried him towards the house of a bright beauty. Climbing a tree under the window of the girl's house, Nick began to watch how Helena pours herself a drink into a glass and walks around the room in a dressing gown. But then Ray suddenly appears. Nick quickly jumps down from the tree, and as he runs, a detailed picture of what is happening in the bedroom between Helena and Ray is played in his head. He runs towards a phone and calls Lawrence to tell him about what he is going through. Lawrence is seriously worried about the moral health of his friend. After a one-night stand with Helena, he constantly talks about her like she's his object. Nick pretends that he has came to his senses so that nothing is wrong, but he himself has already came up with a plan in his head to conquer the girl. Keanu goes to a flower shop and writes down an invitation to Helena to a housewarming party, which he decided to arrange literally at that moment. In the next scene, he sends her the invitation with a bouquet of flowers while he drives home, where Anne is still waiting for him for dinner. But on the way home, the doctor again stops at Helena's window and accidentally falls asleep. Waking up moments later, Nick hurriedly goes back to his girlfriend, but she did not wait for him and fell asleep right in the living room. Nick is not very upset by what happened. He takes a seat and decides to call Helena. She does not pick up the phone for a long time, as she is still busy in bed with Ray. But after numerous calls, she decides to stop and pick up the phone. She hears a loud silence, and after a couple of seconds, she hears beep. There is a housewarming party at Nick's house, and discusses her expectations with her friend since her boyfriend arranged such a holiday, which means he is preparing to propose to her. But very soon, she realized that the celebration wasn't prepared for her. When Helena arrives, the doctor does not take his eyes off her, not embarrassed even by the presence of the bride. Helena behaves coldly and indifferently, and quickly switches her attention to the youngest guest, making Keanu jealous, and then completely takes off her dress and starts splashing in the fountain in her underwear. All the present guests are closing watching the extravagant beauty. Minutes forward, Helena and her young man leave the party. The following day, Helena comes to Nick's house to pick her belongings. Leaving Nick's house, Helena goes to the road as an SUV drives out of the corner at high speed and the sound of brakes is heard. At the hospital, everyone is questioning the absence of Dr. Cavanaugh, and it's assumed that he has taken another job. One of his colleagues goes to his house to arrange a letter of recommendation. Nick kindly greets his friend, but does not promise him recommendations until he becomes an accidental witness to the terrible scene. Helena is sitting on the bed in the basement. Nick asks his comrade not to tell anyone about what he saw. In return for this, he will give him his position. Helena cannot remember what happened to her. Nick avoids talking about the accident, tries to surround his beloved with care. He makes a throne for her, based on a wheelchair, so that Helena can move around the house. But the girl is not ready to accept her helplessness. A friend rings the doorbell and looks in the windows. The doctor hides and does not make any sound, realizing that the man will report the police if he sees the girl lying down. Helena begins to move around the house on her thumb, and little by little, she comes to her senses. She tries to explain to Nick that nothing has changed in their relationship, despite the fact that he took possession of his beloved in this way. In the following scene, she tells Nick that she considers him an inferior man and regrets meeting him. Ray tries to find Helena. He leaves his phone number at the grocery store and asks the clerk to let him know if there is any news about the girl, and can't stand the separation from Nick and goes to his house. The guy frantically tries to hide the stroller with Helena, making it so that she could not scream. As a result, Anne is going to open the door with her key and go inside. We see how the doctor manages to hide his prisoner at the last moment. Anne hugs him, kneels down in front of him, and tries to make peace from the threshold, throwing off her and her friend's extra clothes. But as soon as she is in the same underwear, Nick, in joy, does not hold back his enthusiasm without even starting the lesson. Helena sees all this through a small gap in the next room, and a smirk appears on her face. Nick escorts Anne out of the house without explaining anything to her, and on the threshold, he noticed that in addition to the obsessive girlfriend, Ray is also following him. To save himself from people's assumptions, Cavanaugh orders an expensive bouquet of flowers with a note addressed to Helena. Left alone with the captive, Nick listens to her ridiculaze him about his male inferiority. In order to take revenge, in the morning the doctor prepares another surprise for Helena, which in his opinion will make the girl even more beautiful. After returning from a run, Dr. Cavanaugh approaches a makeshift altar decorated with white flowers. In the center of all this is a box covered with a soft pillow on which Helena sits. Now the girl is deprived, not only on the lower limbs, but also of the upper ones. Nick takes care of the one who was once a beautiful and sweet girl. He spoon-feeds Helena, combs her hair, and does her makeup. He makes everything she requests. Nick replies that no man will take care of her the way he does. To please her, the doctor orders drinks and ripe pomegranates at the grocery store. The salesman remembers that such a set was always in Helena's order and calls Ray to report his suspicions about Nick. Ray arrives at the surgeon's house and sees through the window how he kisses Helena. A man with a zealous monologue enters the back door and discovers to his horror what has happened to his beloved. A fight then breaks out, during which Ray hits a stone statue and it falls on Nick's body. The doctor wakes up in the hospital. Doctors walk around him, and even his ex-girlfriend Anne came to visit him. He is informed that Helena is in another room, and he immediately runs there to see her. But to his surprise, the girl was absolutely whole, with minor injuries after the accident. Taking her by the hand, Nick realizes that he dreamed it all. Friends, I hope you enjoyed this video. Do not forget to subscribe and click the like button. See you next time.